Welcome to this episode of the Jobology podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and today my guest is a good friend of mine. I've known him since high school. His name is Chris, and he's going to tell us all about being a American football player in multiple different countries. He's going to give us some insight on exactly what he's doing right now and how he got to where he is today. So without further ado, Chris. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you for coming on with me today. For those of you who don't know, this is my friend Chris. I've known Chris since we were freshmen in high school. Been great friends ever since. So just appreciate that you're taking the time out of your day to do this for me. We are going to be discussing today international American football. So I'm going to clear up all these terms real quick, and then we'll let Chris kind of explain exactly what it is. But for the remainder of the podcast, we're going to discuss football as American football and soccer as what the rest of the world calls football. So for just ease of communication, football is football, soccer is what everyone else calls football. So now that we've got that all cleared up, international football, playing in many countries, but where are you at right now?
Currently, I'm in Finland. The city I play in is called Kotka, which actually means eagle in Finnish. But I am back and forth between the capital of Helsinki and Kotka.
Okay, cool. And then we're going to kind of talk more. We'll discuss more about, exactly what you're doing in Finland, what kind of your day-to-day looks like currently right now as a member of what's the team in Finland right now?
So the team is actually called Kotka Eagles. And
so the Eagles?
Yeah, literally Eagles, but it's because it's American football.
Gotcha.
So you have to have like an English name mascot.
Gotcha.
For that purpose, but I don't know, kind of funny.
Okay. Interesting. So before we get to, starting the whole journey to playing international football, I guess my question would be why play football? Why get started in football? What kind of drove you towards football in general?
I think just from being literally growing up in what I would call a football family with two other brothers, very competitive. My dad had a big football background. So pretty much I'd say from the age of 4, it was kind of programmed in each of us to kind of take this path in life. Obviously it's been a long road for me. I'm still in the game 30 years later at almost 34, 33, but 34 is coming soon.
Yeah.
But why? It's just something that developed early on as a child that became a passion. And I think any of us, if they could, would chase that passion as long as they could.
Exactly.
And until they can't anymore, Yeah. So for me, I've just been fortunate to be able to continue on in the sports industry, which usually ends pretty quick for most people.
Yeah. I can only speak on the American sports side, of knowledge. And I know that the majority of athletes, their career, the average lifespan is only a few years for most athletes, just on average. But I knew you, and when I first met you, you were playing football in high school, for the high school that we went to. And then from there went on to play in college football. But how does that process exactly take place? I know you can get recruited. I know that people send out, letters and different things like this, but how do you either narrow it down? How do you come up with the decision on okay, I'm going to take this path, I'm going to this school?
I think the landscape of the recruiting game has changed so much now with the presence of social media. So back when I was coming out of high school with you, I think we barely had YouTube. We were still
working on our MySpace top 8s.
Yeah, still film. There was no Instagram. We were still filming football games on. Some teams were doing VHS and transitioning to DVD. So if you had an editing system, it was just a lot different, the landscape of how to market yourself individually to these universities.
Right.
Now, there's kind of a saying, if you're in the sports world, especially for someone who's trying to get recruited, if you're good, they'll find you.
I've heard that.
And I think that still remains true. And even more so today, it's easier because there's so many platforms where you can just look someone up or someone pops up in your feed because you follow a certain, page or whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be. And you're like, whoa, who's this kid? Um, but, we kind of had to kind of do a lot of work, me and my dad,
Yeah.
along with my brothers of marketing. We literally, my dad spent, I don't even want to know how much money,
A lot.
fortunately, being able to take me around the country to show face and get in front of these
Mm-hmm.
coaches, which I'm super thankful for to this day because a lot of parents don't have the ability to do that or the time.
Yeah.
Um, but my dad, I think he knew from day one, he saw the talent in us individually
Mm-hmm.
and knew what he wanted from us, for an athletic standpoint. And he knew that in order for us to get that level, certain things were going to have to be done a certain way, even if that meant going against the norm or making other parents mad or whatever it may
Right.
be.
Right. Yeah. Kind of rocking the boat.
Right. He just knew that he had to put us in the most competitive space possible in order
Right.
for coaches to start noticing us. So a lot of it had to do with one, being a good athlete and
Mm-hmm.
performing on the field, but two, the self-marketing standpoint and sending out DVD tapes to pretty much every school in the country is what we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And then we
So
didn't mention, I forgot to mention, but Chris plays quarterback. That's his traditional number one position. But I mean, you have dabbled in playing other positions, stuff like that, but
mhm.
quarterback is the main position. So how from our high school, where you go to the first stop, which is
UCLA,
gotcha, and then from there we transfer at a certain point to another college.
Furman University.
And then is there, I mean, not to get too into the weeds, obviously, there's, millions of reasons for doing different things or whatever like that. Is there, what drew you to Furman? Not necessarily like what led you out of UCLA, but what more drove you to be like, oh, I think that'll be my next stop.
I just look at it purely as like, where can I go to play now?
Gotcha.
And that meant for me coming from a D1,
Mm-hmm.
where if you transfer to another D1, you had to sit out another year.
Right.
I already used my red shirt at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant if I transferred to another school, it would go against my clock.
You're going to use like
Uh,
lose a year of playing.
Eligibility,
Gotcha.
exactly. While someone else is playing at the quarterback position. And
Mm-hmm.
we all know only one guy can play at a time. So if you're
Yeah.
sitting, someone else could be shining.
Right.
So part of that process for me finding Furman was, one, doing research of other schools that are out there, but two, dropping in reality my ego a little bit of,
Yeah.
yes, I know I could play at the D1 level, but I want to play now, and that might mean going to a smaller school that I can just get on the field and showcase my ability.
Right.
The other part of that too was you don't have to sit a year if you transfer down a level.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So then you
now
can play right away, ready to go.
immediately, no sit
Gotcha.
out rule. So now that's changed. You can transfer anywhere into that transfer portal,
Mm-hmm. That would have been
and
nice.
play right away.
That would have
So
been nice.
it always feels like, for me, just kind of like you set the foundation for all these things that come into existence,
Yeah.
but you don't actually get to utilize that. But it's nice for athletes because coaches now, have always been able to just pick up and leap to another school and coach right away. So
Yeah, it makes it more the I mean, for lack of a better term, the playing field fair. But
right.
so Furman, we graduate from Furman, or I mean, I again, do you graduate? Do we just transfer out? How does that work?
Well, from UCLA, I transferred, so I
Okay.
was only there for 2 years
Mhm.
academically, and I went to Furman when I transferred. I was there for 3 years,
Okay.
and I did graduate there.
Graduated.
Most athletes utilize 5 years to graduate
Okay.
if they're on scholarship. So you
Makes
most people
sense.
go to school for 4 years, but because you're redshirt, you get that
You
extra
have the
fifth
extra.
year. It lets a lot of student athletes kind of ease into school
Mhm.
and manage both schedules.
Is that the typical is to redshirt like your freshman year to kind of get your feet wet or whatever, or is that just? I mean, is it just
Uh,
kind of
you're
situation by situation?
it is a situation based off your
Mhm.
position needs at the school. A
Gotcha.
lot of it has to do with how physically mature you are to make the jump from high school.
Gotcha. Hmm.
And then obviously the football IQ part of it, comes into it because the speed of the game is just that much faster.
At each
You might
level, yeah.
yeah, you might have been the All-American at your high school, and now you're with everyone who was an All-American at their high school,
Right.
or all state, or however you want to put it. So
Yeah.
you just level up basically.
Yeah. And then then you go, if you make it to the next level, it's like, wow, it's got fast. It's like, well, yeah, everybody that made it to the NFL is
Yeah,
now in the NFL. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. So from graduation, do you sticking kind of with football, is it like you find an agent to hire, an agent finds you to take on as a client? Like, how does that kind of relationship go?
To first make that jump from collegiate to professional,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have to have like some type of plain resume that's been built up
Okay.
tape wise before agents come calling or any of
Gotcha.
that. You got to be realistic about your abilities.
Okay.
So I had fortunately a really great senior year at Furman
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of accelerated my path being able to be a professional athlete
Yeah.
because of the fact that I put a good piece of work out there on tape,
Right.
and also like we had other guys on my team that were getting looked at as well that were all Americans or all conference guys, so it kind of helped being a
Shines a
part of
light
it,
on you too. Like, even if
right?
they're not
That
necessarily there for this one specific person, if somebody else is balling out, they're like, wait, who's that guy? Yeah.
exactly.
Gotcha.
So we just had a great team of talent individually
Nice.
that scouts were coming to our games and noticing guys that they hadn't previously before.
Okay. Interesting.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it went two ways. Coming from a smaller school, you don't get the publicity that you do at the big schools because you're not on the big stage or on
Right.
television.
Right.
So just my last name alone did help
Yeah.
coming out, transferring from a big school. So my name was known, but it was more like, okay, what's he doing now at this smaller school? How has he done at this school? Is he
Yeah.
dominating?
So has he taken a step back? What's the situation? Gotcha.
Right. So
Okay.
um, people followed me along the way from
Mhm.
UCLA.
Yeah.
And just, without knowing it, there were scouts at my games throughout the season. And
Mhm.
then when it came time for the season to be over, then we have our pro days where we have to go test individually
Gotcha.
and kind of shine at our position on the field with no contact
Yeah.
and take all the measurements and whatnot.
Do
And
like drills and stuff like that.
yeah, and that's
Okay.
kind of like the solidifying of like, okay, is this guy really a potential NFL athlete?
Gotcha. Does he
You
like
know,
hit
that
all the marks that we're looking for or
yeah,
whatever?
the
Okay.
tape says one thing, but we want to see one more last impression of him in person before we might take a chance on him. And
Okay.
that's that pro day measure. It's a measurement day basically
Gotcha.
to kind of like write your name in stone. But
And then
I had agents
okay.
reach out to me is
Gotcha. That's what I was curious.
ultimately. So the agents I had ended up representing a few guys that were doing very well in the NFL at the time.
Oh, nice.
Mike Tolbert,
Okay. I remember him.
Cole Beasley.
Okay.
I
He's
think
still
he's
going.
still
Yeah.
still going. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they did a good job for me getting noticed from a small school and getting a shot at the next level.
Nice. Okay. So then we do that. Draft day comes up. And then what kind of what's the next deal with that? I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, again, me and Chris are really good friends. I went out to South Carolina to go with Chris during the draft time and visit him and hang out, and it was a really fun time actually.
Yeah. So man, this is looking back. It's like, dang, this was 10 years ago.
Dude,
Pretty much
we're old.
to the date
We're old.
because we just had they just had pro days and just had the
Yep.
draft.
Yep.
So about 10 years ago to the date, I think it kind of depends on what you're predicted to go draft wise, or if you're going to get picked up as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
For me, because I tested so well on my pro days,
Mm-hmm.
coming from a small school, it's harder to get drafted.
Right.
But there was some predictions out there that I might get picked up in the late 7th round.
When like teams
Like,
want to take a chance on a guy or something like that.
Yeah, or as
Gotcha.
like a preferred undrafted free agent.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we sat there and watched the draft. I knew I would be like on the fence, like if it's not
Yeah.
7th round, someone might call pretty soon thereafter.
Yeah.
And from my experience, we remember I didn't get picked up in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I think it was like later in that evening or the next morning, I had two teams call. So
I remember.
yeah,
It was we were in Charleston, right? That's where
Uh-huh.
we'd gone to go to watch the draft. And we'd gotten in the car and we were going to like either like a after party or a friend's house or something like that, a party. And we were on our way there, but we had to like go stop by a couple places or whatever. And on that drive is when you got a couple calls and
Yeah.
had to take those or whatever and field that and tell all of us to shut up in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really solidified until pretty much
Yeah.
the next day from my agent. But basically, I had gotten invites to
Mhm.
two different camps, Jacksonville Jaguars and Baltimore Ravens.
Yep. That's right.
Um, Now, this put me kind of in a
I
bind.
was gonna say, how do you choose that? Like, do you?
Right.
Oh,
So that's the difference. Like sometimes it's for people out there who are watching, like sometimes it's good not to get drafted in the seventh round if you're a
is
borderline guy, because you might end up going to a team that you don't fit their personnel whatsoever. And they're kind
right.
of just picking you up because you're one of the better guys left on the board.
Yeah, not need,
Um,
but want, but just whatever.
yeah,
Gotcha.
you're a good talent and they just want to get you.
Gotcha.
But then you could be going to a team that's loaded at your position and you're not really necessary to be on that roster.
Right.
So for me, fortunately, the two teams that did call me did have a need for the type of guy I was, which was kind
Mhm.
of a dual threat quarterback or hybrid wide receiver type,
Right.
athletically. Um, so I ended up getting to choose where I wanted to go to an extent, but my situation was unique in that like one team had a rookie training camp one week and the other team had it the following week.
Gotcha.
And the way it was explained to me by my agent at the time was, Chris, this is good that you have two options, but we'll be honest with you right now that if team A offers you contract following camp,
Hmm.
we can't go to camp with team B and
Right.
risk losing a contract with team A. You pretty much have to take that contract and sign.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I was invited to go to Jacksonville's camp
Hmm.
as a receiver. I didn't play quarterback in the NFL with my stint there.
Hmm.
I was seen as a really good athlete, maybe too fast for the quarterback position at the time.
Right.
The game's changed for sure now since then.
Significantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I had my shot. I went in and played receiver in Jacksonville and did very well at the camp, and they offered me a contract after that rookie camp. So
Nice.
that meant saying no to Baltimore.
Yeah.
But at that point I had solidified a dream.
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do? You got to take it. Okay, so we football happens. I actually completely forgot about the next part. I was like I was looking on your Instagram because I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I remember all this stuff. And I was like, oh crap, he played in Canada. I
Yeah.
completely forgot about that. Like that, I don't know why, but it just completely like left my mind. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, all the different international stuff. So I completely skipped over Canada. So
Mhm.
from NFL, what kind of transpires to put you in Canada, or again, what's the step to get there? What kind of how does that go?
Well, the step to get there is just to get cut from an NFL team.
Okay, well there you go.
So that's plan B.
Hmm.
Plan A was the NFL,
Right.
but plan B is still a damn good plan.
Yeah.
So I got cut from Jacksonville after about a month and a half there.
Hmm.
I didn't make the 53-man roster. So I got signed in at the 90-man, and they shave it down like every 2 weeks. You've probably seen Hard Knocks. It
Hmm.
goes from like 90 to 75 to like, I don't know, 60 something and 53. Then the season's here.
Right.
But so I got cut. That put me on the waiver wire. Nobody picked me up.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was, definitely in a state of like, oh shoot, what's going to
Now
happen
what do
here
I
now?
do? Yeah.
Nobody's picking me up. So I ended up going back home to California
Hmm.
and got in touch with my agents, kind of like reworked and kind of sat like, what's going on? Where am I taking my career? Is football done?
And
You know, do,
you're still like, I want to play football at this point. You're like, that's what you
yeah,
want to do.
absolutely. I'm
Okay.
23 years old and I've put my whole life into it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Because I mean, not, I don't know. I think different people obviously would react different ways, but I know that there's a good amount of people that I get that and they go, oh, all right, well, I'm done. It's over. Time to just, pack it in. No more football. But like,
yeah,
I like that like determination of like, well, no, if I want to do this, I'm going to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the same thing. I had a stopgap at
Mhm.
UCLA where things weren't going as planned. And what do? You sit there and take the L, but you
Yeah.
got to find a way to move on and kind of redirect yourself and figure out, okay, why didn't it work? Okay, how can I make it work somewhere else or find an opportunity at least? So football, I mean, that's different because opportunities just don't hand themselves out. You
Hmm.
definitely do have to have like a good agent or right timing, so to speak.
Right.
But it just so happened to be that at my pro day, two Canadian teams were there as well who were very interested in
Nice.
getting me if an NFL team didn't
Something didn't
sign
work out.
me.
Right.
Yeah, then I guess what they could do is like sign for my neg rights, which means like negotiation rights for short. So
Gotcha.
I hadn't even known this, but Montreal Alouettes at the time, which is where I ended up going, Canada, had like basically bought my negotiation rights. Like,
So they like basically they're saying, "Hey, look, we know we can't sign you right now. You're doing other things, but the
mm,
minute that you become available, we
you're
we get
ours.
we get first we get first dibs. We get first chance."
Exact,
Okay.
exactly. So that's what happened. My agents got in contact with Montreal and said, "Hey, Chris just got cut.
Hmm.
Um, we know he really wants to play quarterback. You know, he fits the Canadian style of play right now, is
Hmm.
which is a kind of a dual threat style for quarterback, run pass type of guy."
Yeah.
So they signed me, and I got
Right.
signed immediately to the practice squad. I flew out to like Montreal a week later,
Yep.
got my passport for the first time, and
Yep.
I was living in Montreal, which was basically like almost being in France. If you have never been to
Hmm.
Montreal, it's not like the rest of Canada is a French province. So that was like my first
Interesting.
real international experience was being in Montreal.
Do you think that sparked the travel bug in some sense? Like looking back now, did that like kind of like, or have you always had that like I want to see more
I
stuff?
mean, that might have been a little bit of it. I
Yeah.
would say I was a little bit more like nervous or had anxiety with that
Hmm. Hmm.
because I had known that Montreal was so different than the rest of Canada. I had been to Canada before.
Okay.
I didn't realize it was like a mini France
It's like not the same.
right.
Yeah.
Everything was in French. So a little bit, but I was still young enough to where like I didn't know the direction I was going. I just knew I wanted to play.
Gotcha. Okay. So we do Canada. And then how does that go? I mean, obviously we're in
So
Finland right now, so there's some steps that occurred between then and now.
well,
So what
well,
happens with Canada?
well, to be honest, like Canada, I left Canada by choice
Mhm.
because another NFL team called and came knocking.
There you go.
So
Gotcha.
if that wouldn't have happened, I could still be in Canada. Who knows?
Wild.
But yeah, the New York Jets called.
Okay.
So, I wasn't gonna say, hey, no to the Jets. I'm going
How does
again
that
and
work?
give it a shot.
How does that work with Canada? Do you get to just go, hey man, like is it in your contract with the Canadian team? Like, hey, if an NFL team comes calling, I get to go
Yeah,
skedaddle?
yeah. So because you're an American and you're not a Canadian,
Hmm.
and you weren't drafted in a Canadian football draft, only Canadians get drafted in that draft from the universities in Canada.
Gotcha.
You have like a built-in like um type of structure in your contract where he's not Canadian, so he's free to go if it's like something like the NFL, where
Gotcha.
it's not gonna directly compete with our league or with this contract. Now, if
Okay.
I just said, "Hey, I want to leave this team and go to another Canadian team," that's not going to happen,
No. Okay.
right?
Gotcha. Interesting. All
Um,
right.
so that
Uh,
happens all the time because they know obviously the dream for everyone is to make it to the NFL.
yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So go back to the NFL now.
Mm-hmm.
And then New York Jets, is that another like training camp situation? What is that situation?
It is, but it's a lot closer to the preseason at this point.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more intense and everything's more accelerated from literally jumping in, trying to like just learn a playbook on the fly. I'm
Right.
like doing football 9, 10 hours a day, literally just in a book and jumping on the field and trying to just make sense of
Figure it out.
everything
Yeah.
at the highest level possible in the world.
Yeah.
so
Jeez.
um, I jump in at receiver, get back to receiver again is what I was
Okay.
getting looked at for at that level. And I think I was in New York for like 2.5 weeks and I got cut again. So
Yeah.
um, at that point, I really realize like how much of a business it is. And they don't
Right.
give you reasons to why they cut you or anything. It's
See ya.
more so, it's more like a business decision. You know, we might be
Hmm.
short somewhere and we need to add a guy because the safety got hurt.
Yep.
Or they just might not think you're not good enough,
Yeah.
or not good enough at that position, or whatever it is. They
They're
don't
not
tell
fitting
you.
a need right now that they need.
Right.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily about your talent. It's just about what
Hmm.
does the team need right now.
Yeah. That makes
So
sense. I mean, that's
never
still
know.
probably hard to like in the moment. That's not, I'm sure that's not the mindset is, oh, well, it's just what the
Yeah.
team needs. It's like, no, screw this team. Like,
Yeah. But
yeah.
the thing is, it's a hard truth, and that's usually what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like, it's so cut and dry. I would say that industry at that level is the most cutthroat there is out
Yeah.
there, because you could be balling out and doing well in camp, but it's like, well, we already got 4 receivers who are just as good or
Yeah.
better. Even if you're doing good, we just don't need you right now.
Yeah. And a lineman just went down, and now we have only X amount of roster spaces. So
Yeah, we got.
unfortunately, you're the one. Yeah. You're the
Mm-hmm.
expendable one. Gotcha. Okay.
So it's just the way it is.
Okay. And then from the Jets, is that where we take the turn to like international, meaning like overseas football, not Canada included?
Almost,
Okay.
almost. I wanted to go back to Canada,
Okay.
but the same thing. You leave a workplace, what happens? They're going to fill your spot.
Exactly.
So I left Canada. They filled my spot with another quarterback, and but the kicker was they still held my negotiation rights. So
Oh,
even though I couldn't go back to the team. I couldn't go to another Canadian team because they held my rights for 2 years, which was
gotcha.
the contract on that.
Okay.
So I was pretty much stuck, and that was at the point like, okay, now what am I doing with
Hmm.
football? Am I going to start my coaching career,
Hmm.
or am I going to go look for arena football opportunities, which were still present at the time,
Yeah.
or some other path? I don't know.
Okay.
International football, though, I would say it never really crossed my mind
Interesting.
until it was brought up to me by some people that I had known, again, that resurfaced, that had done it themselves before.
Gotcha.
Um,
That was kind of going to be my next, like, what I was
mhm.
going to say is like, how do you find that? How do you find like internet? Because I mean, honestly, before we had ever talked about it, before you had ever told me like, hey, I'm going to play football in Italy, I was like, what football in Italy? What do you don't play soccer? You're like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, American football in it. And I was like, wow, all right. But I had never even heard of that. So like, is that something you're just up late at night one night on Google football opportunities and bam, that pops up? Or like you said, is it something that somebody tells you about? How do you kind of find out that that's an option?
So the way I found out really is just over the years of having a built up network base of different coaches and people that follow my career. And I think it was my older brother had a connection coach wise, or
Mm-hmm.
something, that had coached in Europe before. And he had mentioned to my older brother, like, hey, why doesn't Chris take a look at Europe, type
Right.
of thing? And that kind of just directed me into like looking into it.
Right.
And then I found that there was a platform where I could pretty much go all in,
Mm-hmm.
called europlayers.com, where I could actually make like a football profile of myself and my playing
Okay.
resume and put it on there for Europe to look at.
Okay. So
That's
you find it like through somebody saying, hey, I think you'd be good at this. You should check this out. You go online and you're like, wait a second, this is something I think I would be interested in.
Yeah, it
Okay.
just wasn't so well marketed at the time
Right.
on the internet, and like I said before, like YouTube and
Yeah. I mean,
social
I
media
never
hadn't
even
really
knew.
gotten going. So
Yeah.
that was more like logging on to a website that even to this day hasn't really been changed much. It's still pretty old school,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like old school profile, and put your
Yeah.
playing resume up, and there's a bunch of teams that have their own profiles, and that's what I did. I put my stuff on there, and lo and behold, a couple of days later, I had like offers in 9 countries to play football in Europe.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask you too. Is it something where like it like because the first stop is Italy, right? I'm
Yeah.
remembering correctly. Okay, so is that something where like they reach out to is that the only team and you're like, oh cool, like Italy? Or again, like you said, you get 9 offers. How do you choose a country? Like how do you go? Is it something you're like, I've always
So
wanted to see this country, I'm going there?
yeah, so looking back, like, how did I make this decision? I think I really made this decision based off like not so much the football side of things, but
Mhm.
okay, where do I like want to live or experience culture wise,
Gotcha.
or think that I want to go
Yeah.
to? So like all these teams were hitting me up, and it was kind of like 6 months after, no, maybe 5 months after the fact that the NFL thing was done and Canada kind of blown over.
Mhm.
So I was still training and in
Yeah,
football and actually coaching at a high school, Hoover High in San Diego.
that's right.
Um,
Playing catch with me in the park.
yeah, but I was, still kind of just trying to
Yeah.
juggle like these opportunities that were coming my way and on Europe, and
Yeah.
like, is this even like serious football? What is it?
Mhm.
So I didn't make this decision based off like, hey, I want to go play the best football, because it was kind of
Mhm.
hard to decide like where would the best football be. You couldn't just look it up and see the tape.
Right. No, yeah.
So
You don't know.
right, so I purely made this decision really like football is going to be a part of it, but I narrowed it down to like I just want to go live in Italy and see what that's about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So
that's totally fair. For real quick, can you just run off the different cities that you've played in real quick? European cities. The like
yeah,
route.
yeah. So I've played in Milano, Italy.
Hmm.
I've played in Pardubice, Czech Republic,
Okay.
which is about an hour from Prague. Most people know Prague.
Hmm.
I've played in Wrocław, Poland,
Okay.
which is southwestern Poland. I've played in Helsinki in Finland, in the
Finland.
capital. Before that, I was in Germany in a city
That's right.
called Ingolstadt, which is
Mhm.
about an hour north of Munich. And now I'm back in Finland,
Gotcha.
but in a city that's about an hour south or northeast of Helsinki called Kotka.
Out of all those cities that you just listed, all the different places you played, what was the like toughest competition? Like what league was the toughest or closest to, what we would know over here?
So right now, the best like league I had been a part of is in the Finnish league.
Oh, cool.
It probably would have been the German league when I was
Hmm.
with Ingolstadt, but unfortunately with COVID, that season got canceled.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I found my way to Finland by way of the German season being canceled, because Scandinavia had been hit the least hardest
Gotcha.
out of pretty much all of Europe with
Gotcha.
the case rate. So we were fortunate to have like a half season in 2020.
I was
And
going to
that's how
ask
I
you
felt.
about that too, of like, that's going to be another question of what happens when you're literally in a foreign country as an American working like under, some kind of work thing. And then they go, cool, job's over. Don't leave your house, stay inside and don't talk to anybody. Don't, cough on anybody. If you think
Yeah.
you're sick, go in the river and wash away. What, what do you do? Like, what is that? How does that happen? Does it come down from like the owner that's like, hey man, season's canceled, we're done? Like, how does that go?
In Germany, that was a unique experience because it literally, the whole COVID thing got announced like 2 days after my arrival in Germany.
Oh,
So like
Jesus.
that's when like it officially broke that like this is
This is the
something
thing.
real.
Mhm.
It's a thing. So, but no one really knew how to handle it.
Right.
Nobody had a game plan. No country, no city was like, this is what we're doing with the people. This is what you got to do. Everyone was just kind of figuring out like, what are we going to do? Now,
Mhm.
living in Europe, I would say it probably made the process smoother in the extent that Europeans are like, in general, they just follow rules that
Mhm,
are,
mhm.
put into place a little bit faster than Americans do
Yeah.
when it comes to like what we deem as freedoms or rights.
Right.
But they're not looking at it as like rights being taken away. They're looking at it as like, this is what we need to do for people,
Yeah. Just what?
to
Yeah, that's what's happening
so
now.
that we don't create a worse situation.
Right.
So in Germany, like what happened, like when I was there, so 2 days into being there, the board came to our house, and like we weren't like in a situation, oh, we all have to have masks on and
Mhm,
stuff,
mhm.
because nobody knew this
Right.
extent
You
yet.
didn't know what we were. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was relayed to us like, hey, things might be getting shut down in the city. You might not be able to walk outside with like other people unless it's from your household. Kind of
Mhm.
like giving us maybe some information of what might be the case, or people might not be able to go in stores or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Um, and they laid out to like, hey, this might suspend the season start point.
Gotcha.
because no one wanted to believe that football was not going to be played.
Right. But nobody wanted to believe life was gonna, literally stop.
Nowhere.
Like,
Yeah, nobody knew that
uh-uh.
all industries would just cease to
Yeah.
operate. So yeah, like the season just kept getting suspended. It was no like cancellation officially until
They just
like
kept like pushing it down and down
they
and
just kept
down.
pushing it back in Germany, and all the rest of Europe did too. I think the NFL was doing that too, and other
Yeah,
professional leagues.
everywhere I think, and especially in the US with different things, people were like, just keep pushing it down the line. Oh,
Yeah,
we have to cancel these dates, but we're gonna, it'll be open in a month, and then a
yeah,
month turns into 2 years, and here we are.
yeah. I think it didn't really hit people until like the bigger leagues started doing, like NCAA basketball
Yeah,
tournament was straight up canceled.
yeah.
So then
That
that's
was
when
the
people
big
like,
first thing. Yeah, I think that was
yeah,
like
so
the
that's
big.
when people were like, oh shoot, like no
Hmm.
sports are going to be played
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so they didn't officially cancel the season until myself being in Germany for like 100 days.
Hmm.
And at that point, I had like a work permit in processing.
Are you getting
So
paid during that time?
I was, but only like 70% of my salary
Okay.
because I wasn't actually like playing games. I was just like, we weren't even practicing. We were having like kind of like Zoom meetings
Hmm.
before it was like, like what anyone really did from that aspect football wise.
Yeah.
But like we couldn't meet in person to
Right.
practice whatsoever. And if you can't be in person for football,
It's
it's
not.
not going to
Yeah.
work.
No. You can go over as much as you want, but you got to do it in person at times. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess like what's the like competition level difference, or like what's the like comparison? So like if you were like, oh, I mean, I don't know the right way, and I don't want to. I mean, obviously, I sound ignorant.
Yeah.
That's
Just,
why I do this.
well,
Um,
that's fair enough. I mean, it's the level of play. Like it's, like where the US is the best in the world at American football
mhm,
because we're, that's what we do. But
yeah.
just so background for viewers, like football is actually played in 100 countries now,
Wow.
like
I
worldwide.
did not know
And
that.
yeah, and it doesn't mean they're all professional leagues. Majority of them
Sure.
are like semi-professional, where there might be some Americans are getting paid, but the rest are just everyday people, that work jobs and then they love the game, so they come play.
Nice.
But from the first time I actually played in Italy to now, it's developed so much
Yeah.
fundamentally in the 10 years. And I think social media, like I said, has helped that a lot because it's allowed people to see what's going on and kind of invest into the game more. Um, right now, like the level of play is getting pretty good, like in
Yeah.
Germany. But you got to be fair in like how you compare that. You can't just say like NFL is the standard. Like, no, now you're talking about incorporating other countries. The standard's not going to be NFL because no one plays football when they're a kid in Europe.
Right.
They're playing other sports. So right now, I'd say the best level of play would be in Germany
Oh.
or in the European League of Football, which is a new European league. So that's like a high level Division II football,
Okay.
college football in the States. Um, so if you're fair in that like comparison, that's
Yeah.
pretty damn good football because there's a lot of good football out playing at D2 football.
Right.
Most the average viewer just thinking Division I football or
Mhm.
NFL or whatever. But if you're taking guys, and they're learning the game of football when they're 16, 17, 18 now, or even like young adults,
Yeah.
they've developed pretty well. And that's
Pretty
the
quickly.
level of play right now at the highest level here.
Gotcha. And then for I don't necessarily, I mean, it's going to be kind of tough to compare like salary benefits, stuff like that from European League to the NFL. But if you had to compare it to like, I don't know, another regular job or, your traditional job, what is it? Is the salary like, I don't even know necessarily how to ask the question.
So I mean, I can explain that really easy.
Yeah.
Like it's set up different. Like if you were playing NFL, you're purely making salary contract with incentives based off your performance.
Yeah.
The way it works in Europe is like almost like being on a scholarship without the school part.
Okay.
So like you get paid a monthly salary, which is definitely livable, and you have no bills on top of it other than like buying
Gotcha.
groceries.
Okay.
So I have my housing taken care of. I have my transportation taken care of. I have my gym. I
Hmm.
have my just health insurance taken care of. Literally, I have my flights paid for here in round trip there and back
Yeah.
to the States. The only thing I pay for, which I'm like kind of halfway paying right now, is just groceries or if I want to go spend money
Yeah.
on like
Go do
extra
something
extra
fun.
activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, entertainment.
Hmm.
But right now I actually have the team I'm with has food sponsors, which a
Oh
lot of
wow.
teams do. And so I have 3 meals a day if I want
Oh wow.
to
That's pretty
use like
nice.
like food vouchers. So
Yeah.
yeah, like with the monthly salary and everything, like if you put it in that context, like
Hmm.
I mean it's pretty damn good deal
Yeah. Would
because I
it?
don't have.
Could you equate it to like somebody here making like, I don't know, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000? Like, what do you have like a,
So
if you wouldn't
that's
mind?
I can. It's hard though
Yeah.
because like
Sure.
you have to consider like I'm using a different currency and
That's true.
the purchase power is different than like the states like
Gotcha.
um and things cost like just different than they do in the states. Like rent is a lot cheaper here.
Okay.
Grocery shopping's a lot cheaper. But
Okay.
like what's similar is going out to eat, like drinking, having a
Gotcha.
beer, cocktail, or a dinner out. That's similar like to a big city in the States.
Okay.
But like, like if you're paying for a 1 bedroom rent and I don't have to, and it's near the city center, that's like where I'm
Gotcha.
at currently is like €1,000. This same spot that I'm at now would be like $3,500 in San Diego.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but with that being said, the salaries are lower, but it's all relative to like the cost.
Right.
So if I put that in dollar terms, like, and you include all the benefits that I'm getting, like food, insurance,
Uh-huh.
gym, all these things, and you add it up with the salary, like I would equate it to like living in a, I don't know, good sized US city, like making like 50, 60K,
Okay.
but you don't have bills.
Right. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
But it's not that amount of money, but that would be the
That's what
comparison.
that could be. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I'm curious about.
Right.
Okay. So we are in Finland now. We're doing, playing football in Finland. What is your average day to day like? And again, I know some days are going to be crazy. Some days are going to be, hey, we got, things are going wild. Some days are going to be like nothing's happening. I don't, if this was the easiest day ever. But what's kind of like your average day to day like? Or if you want to frame it in like a week's term of like, hey, we practice X amount of times a week. We have a game X amount of
Yeah.
times a week, whatever it is.
At this current point, things are going to start ramping up a little bit more
Okay.
because it's kind of funny. We're talking today. The Finnish football season actually started today. The
Okay.
opening game. The opening game was a couple hours ago here.
Nice.
So, and I'm 10 hours ahead of you.
Yeah, that's right.
Just so, but most teams in Europe, unless they're like a really serious football team, American football team, they're going to be practicing 2 days a week.
Okay.
And that's nowhere near what you do in the States, of course,
Mhm.
for serious football. In the States, it's 4 to 5 days a week,
Yeah.
in the season plus a game. So right now we're at 2 practices a week, and then the season just started. So we'll have a game either on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday is how the league works.
Okay. Thursday, Friday,
So
Saturday. One game a week.
yeah, one
Yeah.
game a week. So uh, that means like 3 days of actually like physically going out to performing football
Okay.
as an activity. But myself, like what happens is like a lot of times when the team recruits an import, which I'm considered, that's the term that's used.
Hmm.
I'm not only playing, I'm also coaching
Oh,
because of my experience. So I'm
okay.
also like operating as like co-offensive coordinator with another Finnish coach.
Gotcha.
So we installed an offense together based off like my knowledge of the game, resume,
And you're on
and
the field. I imagine you kind of can in game make some adjustments or whatever.
yeah, so that comes with being like more of a veteran player.
Yeah.
That would be much harder to do at like a much higher level of
Of
play, of
course.
course. But a lot of teams in Europe do that. One, because it saves money. So it's like 2 for 1 type of thing. And
Mhm.
two, it's just like easier to like have like one or two guys kind of doing like the offense or defense per se versus like having 5 or 6 assistants like you would have in the States, where there could be like a lot of head butting and how to like kind of just run the system.
Gotcha.
So, and you're dealing with like a language translation. So you don't want it too many like voices, or opinions going on of how to do it when you're dealing with like a translation between language as well.
So that's actually something I was going to ask later on, but that's a perfect spot to put it right now is how like what how does that how do you do that? How do you communicate? I mean, especially does everyone do you have a translator? Do most people speak English? Do you speak Finnish? Like what,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Um, Depending on the country you're in, that can be a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah.
But in Finland, like Finland is actually, I think, the second best English
Oh,
speaking country it's not their like main language.
first language. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
first language. So they learn English like very early on along with
Yeah.
Swedish in their school system. And their school system here is actually like one of the best in the world. It's like
Gotcha.
replicated by a lot of countries. But so that makes it a lot easier. However, on the flip side, you still have like a football language that's in English, but the terminology
Yeah.
is it's like another language in itself.
Right.
Uh, so that how hard that is really depends on the experience of the guys that you're with on your team.
Yeah.
Right now, for me, it's a little bit more work because my team is relatively like inexperienced to an extent of like how long
Okay.
they've played the game. And some of the offenses that they've learned before have been a little bit more base in like the terminology, like just fundamentally speaking. I'm a little bit more in depth with my play calling, which means like I'm going to use like coded words more. So
Yeah.
it's not like giving up what
So
we're doing.
obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I can't just literally call the route out,
We're
and
gonna
this
run
late.
left.
Yeah,
Like
I can't say
yeah.
power left or power right. I have
Yeah.
to have terminology that
Mm-hmm.
means the same thing. So I'm getting them to think a little bit deeper in that sense of football,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to remember like they're translating this and finish in their head.
Yeah.
Right. So
What it would be, what's a like, could you give us an example of what a call would be like in the huddle if we were sitting in the huddle? What way would we hear? You don't have to use your, the exact
no,
terms or whatever,
I
but
can. I can. I mean, you wouldn't know it unless you know
no.
it, you know what I mean? So yeah, like this would be like formation first, then protection, then I could have motion tagged or
Mhm.
shift, then the actual concept, whether that's run or pass.
Right, yeah,
That
yeah,
that that's like the
yeah. You haven't even
like
said any of the words yet, and you've lost me.
no, that's how like plays are structured.
Yeah.
So like a play for us would be like doubles right, H yo 50 tiger, check with me on one, ready break.
Yeah, totally, dude. I got that. I know what I'm doing. I am the tiger. I'm going
So
whatever you said, double tiger, something like
yeah,
that.
so that is the key though, is to use words that help them remember certain routes or
Okay.
certain plays. So the words that you use are for concept names,
Mhm.
it does help. That's what you do in the
That's how you do
States,
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
right?
I was always curious about that
But
too. I always like to hear that.
and that's an easier play.
Yeah, and that's a one of how many possible plays.
I mean, you literally can take one play and run it in 3 or 4 or 5
Yeah.
different formations if you want, and it's the same play, but
Jeez.
the way you call it is different.
Yeah,
Or
the
you or
one
you or you
blocking assignment might be different, or one. Yeah, that's wild.
flip the receivers one.
Oh, no, thank you.
Football.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's what people always like. They're just playing a game. It's like, bro, it is way more than that. You
it's
don't even
it's
understand.
it's it's chess with athleticism out
Yeah.
there.
Well, and it's like learning another language, like you were saying. I mean, because
And it,
with going through all these different teams, every playbook's different. I'm assuming. Like you're not getting a copy and be like, oh yeah, I recognize all this. Like
yeah,
it's going to be
no,
somewhat different.
it's different year to year. I mean, you might have a base structure like offense, like spread system or whatever,
Sure.
but terminology is usually different depending on who's running it.
What is the fandom like? So, I mean,
Oh,
obviously we are, crazy nuts here in America for football. What is the level of fandom in Europe?
that's a good question. The fandom is again relative. Like the sport is pretty new and developing again. Like we had NFL Europe before that
Mhm.
went away. but right now in Germany, that's probably the biggest fan base
Okay.
for the sport of American football. Then I would say Austria, and then the UK as well, because of the NFL games that are played there.
Right.
Now, like for fans actually going to these lower league games, if you're like in the higher league, like the German football league, it would be like maybe like a packed out high school game of a few thousand people.
Okay.
I think so the European League of Football, also known as ELF right now, it's the big league that started up last year. They're in their second season this year. One of the top teams in that league, they don't start for another month, but they already pre-sold, I think, 2,500 or 3,000 tickets for their home opener.
Oh wow.
So again,
It's growing.
we're not talking like, and this is not like full on professional football. Like it's still like semi-professional to the extent of the level of play, but that's pretty dang good.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you're
growing
talking like,
massively.
and then you still got a month out. So I'm guessing anywhere between 4,000 or 5,000 will probably be at that game,
Wow.
which is like, if we've all been to a high school football game, like if it's an intimate environment and packed out, it can be pretty loud in there.
Yeah, I could feel like
And-
50,000.
yeah, it can feel exciting. Actually, the Elf Championship game last year, I think they had like 12,000 at it, 12 or
Wow,
15.
that's pretty
So
good.
you will get people at the games. It's growing.
Yeah.
But the fandom, it's
Do you
case by
see like
case.
do you see like anybody walking down the street with like a Eagles shirt? You know what I mean? Like, is there that?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Oh, you mean like with my
Like how
own
we
team
do.
personally?
Yeah, or just
Oh,
any
like
teams.
NFL teams? Yeah, you do see NFL jerseys.
That's cool. So the
Um,
popularity is growing.
yeah, you see it for sure. I mean, TV, social media. I
Makes
think
sense.
next year their NFL is going to be playing a game in Munich. So
And-
you got a new destination for the NFL playing
yeah,
in
new
Germany,
audience. Yeah,
not just the UK. So they're actually going to play a game there.
that's cool.
It's happening. So I wouldn't be surprised if another 10 years in this European league that just started keeps going, that there's some type of joint support or contracts between the leagues that
Nice.
they already have pathway programs that are sending players internationally to these teams in the NFL.
Gotcha.
There's an Austrian guy that's on the Giants right now, Sandro Platzkummer.
Yeah.
So
And then
he's
wasn't there a guy that got drafted by the Chiefs or something like that too? From
yeah.
either like Greece or something? I thought.
You got guys from Mexico, and I think there's a couple of Nigerian guys and UK guys.
That's cool.
So it's getting there. It's cool.
That makes sense. Okay, so as maybe this isn't the right way to phrase this, but like is player coach kind of the path you're looking to keep going on? Are you looking kind of like what's in the future?
For right now, like I would say, as long as I'm able to play, I'm gonna keep playing.
Okay.
Bar anything that stops me from doing so. But yeah, man. I mean, they always say play till you can't no more.
Make them pull you off the field.
Yeah. But that's also being smart about your body as well in the same sense. Fortunately, at my position, like I'm not really getting hit too much.
Sure.
I know when to take hits or not to take hits if I can, be smart, depending on the game situation.
Right. Makes sense.
But yeah, I'm getting up there in age, 33, turning 34 soon.
Oh, tell me about it.
Football years, when you're playing, they age you maybe a year faster each time.
Like he's 68.
Yeah, it's like 2 years every year is 2 years. So, but it also makes me think like, hey, Brady's still playing at the highest level. Why can I not play in Europe like until
63?
Yeah, which is funny. The team I'm playing with, they have like a quarterback. His name's Nessie, who finally retired last year. This is like, maybe I'm gonna have to match this. He stopped playing at 49.
Jesus, you got to make 50 then. You can't stop at 40. You got to one more to.
Yeah, I just gotta make sure that I'm eating all the right stuff and hopping in the sauna.
Good point.
But yeah, player coach, and then eventually I think I want a full-time transition to just coaching, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity over here.
Okay.
The market's not saturated in the sense of like coaches from the States that are experienced that want to stay in Europe, because it's a whole lifestyle change. You got to actually like Europe and want to be here.
Yeah.
Football just doesn't like make everything great. You got to like everything outside of football, which
football's one little aspect of life in that situation. Yeah.
Right. So outside of football, like I love the European lifestyle, and
that's good.
I just see a lot of opportunity with growing the game, and just doing something special with it.
Few more questions for you, either things that I've since thought of since we've been talking, or that haven't really had its own spot that I could put them in. One question I kind of always try and ask, or that I like to ask, is if you, so now knowing you personally, knowing your journey, if you could go back at, right before you ever clicked Italy, before you ever like, that's the spot I'm going to start this, European football journey, is there either something you would change or a piece of advice you would give yourself on that, that day or that whatever, that time frame of like whatever it might be?
Well, that's always tough because you only make decisions based off the information you have hand at the time.
Sure.
Um, but like if I know what I knew now,
Mm-hmm.
it would just be like, like, hey, at 18, if I was an 18-year-old kid and knew that, like, at that time when I was at St. Augustine, like, Chris, you're going to be able to, if you don't make the NFL, you're going to be able to play football anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
When you're 33, you're going to be living in Finland. I would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah.
But it just kind of says, like, in that whole thing where I'm at now, like, just keep working, because you never know what's going to happen or present itself, or how like the game of football is just going to get extended beyond the borders of the US. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it did not cross my mind once that I would be able to continue my dream outside the US. I
Right.
was so programmed to thinking, like, Chris, it's college and NFL, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like,
High
make it
school
or
to
break.
college to NFL. That's the
Yeah,
path.
like
Yeah.
that is it. And that's not true anymore. Of course, that's the dream. And I
Sure.
would tell anyone, like, if you're serious about and passionate about it, like, you're gonna have to put the work in, because
Mm-hmm.
it's the
Nobody's
highest.
handing it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the highest of all levels for that.
Yeah.
But there's opportunities out there, and you never know what might present itself. So it just stay positive, always keep working hard, and outside of that, I think do the right thing, treat people right,
Yeah.
because that networking can go a long way outside of your circle and extend somewhere else where it makes your circle a little bit bigger.
That's a good message. I like that. And then something, so not necessarily specific to you, but so a general piece of advice you would give to anybody that's starting this journey out, either is it, hey, enjoy,
Football.
yeah, or with football or with your international football specifically, if you're like, hey, the person that's right now looking to keep this in mind, that doesn't necessarily
Yeah,
have to go specific to you, but that could work for anybody.
I think that you just have to have an open mind.
That's a good one.
So like football in general, like internationally, you definitely need an open mind, because you're
Mhm.
going to be immersing yourself into a new culture who might do things a lot differently than you will in the States.
Right.
So as long as you're open minded into, like, actually immersing yourself in that culture,
Yeah.
you might surprise yourself and find that you end up liking certain things a lot better than where you're coming from,
um
take them back with you, and implement it into that lifestyle.
yeah,
Um,
be adaptable, kind of,
so just
yeah.
adapt and be open minded.
Wrapping or getting towards the end of the podcast here, the end of it, a couple things I always like to do is I like to, if the guest has a small business or side hustle or something that they're passionate about or that they want to promote for somebody or themselves, um, feel free if there's something you think of or that you want to talk about. If it could be, international football and kind of growing the game or whatever. But um, is there anything that you kind of want to shine a light on per se?
Uh, Personally, no, I would just say, not for myself individually,
Right.
but if you're interested in watching football internationally, you can definitely go on a website called AmericanFootballInternational.com,
Okay.
and it's free, and it gives you access to pretty much every country that's invested into this game.
So yeah, I mean, we'll put
And
the
so
link
you,
below. We'll put it in our description. We'll put that link. But yeah, I mean, that sounds like even if you're interested in playing football
mhm,
overseas, check it out, see the different leagues, see the different teams, what kind of sparks your
exactly.
interest. And if you've never heard of it, check it out. Maybe it's something that you'd be, oh wow, this is interesting. This is cool. Is this something that you would suggest other athletes look into or other people look into?
Like an international football
Mhm.
career.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Okay.
it really depends on, like, what you're going for. Like, there's gonna be a time of realization where, like, the playing days will end.
Mm-hmm.
So play as long as you can, and you might find that you love Europe during that time of playing,
Hmm.
where you want to like transition to the coaching part. To say that it's easy, it's not, because you have to deal with like being a non-national and doing like work permits and coming
Yeah,
and
the
going from
logistics.
countries
Yeah,
and contracts, the logistics, your family back home, and
yeah.
whatever's happened in your personal life, like all that stuff you got to juggle.
And
So
I'm sure you have to miss things too. I mean, there's
yeah,
always that.
it's not a straight path by
Yeah.
any means, but if you want it, I mean, I say go after it. So
Damn. All right. Well, I really thank you for being on with me. Thank you for taking the time out again. Appreciate it. Check Chris out. We will post all the links that we talked about. I'll post Chris's Instagram. So if if the people have questions and they want to reach out or something. But yeah, check it all out. It's really interesting. And it's really exciting to see the game grow, and especially I'm sure if you're involved in it like you are.
all right,
Appreciate
man.
it, brother. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Jobology podcast, and thank you, Chris, for taking the time out of your day to sit down with me. Before we let you go today, a couple big things. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow on all major social media platforms at Jobology Podcast. Check out our website, jobologypodcast.com. Sign up for our email list. And like we always say to end every episode, make good choices.